The invitation had arrived 3 months earlier. Heavy cardstock, gold embossing, my name misspelled. Ms. Elena Vasquaz and Guest. This is with an E. My father had known how to spell my last name for 28 years, but apparently Carol's wedding planner hadn't bothered to check. I'd RSVP'd anyway. Alone. No guest. Now I stood in the coat room of the Pacific Heights Country Club, my phone pressed to my ear, listening to my investment advisor confirm what I'd just set in motion. Every dollar, Elena? That's $2.7 million in operating capital. Are you certain? Completely certain, Richard. Execute the withdrawal immediately. I want notifications sent to Riverside Restaurant Group within the hour. Understood. Consider it done. I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the full-length mirror. My red dress, the one I'd bought specifically for this wedding, suddenly felt like armor. From the ballroom I could hear laughter, glasses clinking, Dad's voice booming over the microphone. Probably making another toast. Another joke. Another casual dismissal of the daughter who'd shown up to watch him marry a woman who was 4 years older than me. I took a breath, smoothed my dress and walked back into the reception. You're dropping out of law school to sell what? Bracelets. Dad had said it with such disbelief, such disappointment, that I'd actually flinched. Not bracelets. Artisan jewelry. And handcrafted home goods. I'm building an e-commerce platform that connects independent artists with. Elena, I paid $60,000 a year for Stanford Law. You're 1 semester away from graduating. 1 semester. And you want to throw it away to play shopkeeper on the internet. I don't want to be a lawyer, Dad. Nobody wants to be a lawyer. You become one anyway because it's a real career with a real future. This is a real career. Selling trinkets online is not a career. It's a hobby. A phase. Something you do on weekends while you work a real job. I tried to explain. The market research I'd done. The artists I'd already partnered with. The business plan I'd written. The $50,000 in seed money I'd saved from summer internships and freelance work. He'd waved it all away. When this fails, and it will fail, don't come crying to me for money. I'm done funding your mistakes. I'd left his house that night and never asked him for another dollar. I'd arrived early, hoping to avoid the pre-ceremony small talk. It hadn't worked. Elena. You came. Carol had descended on me in a cloud of white lace and aggressive enthusiasm. Michael wasn't sure you'd show. Michael. Dad had been Dad my entire life, but apparently Carol called him Michael. Wouldn't miss it, I'd said, smiling. And you came alone? No boyfriend. No boyfriend. Oh honey. Well, there are several eligible men here. Michael's business partners are all single. Well, divorced. But still eligible. She'd laughed like this was hilarious. I'd smiled politely. The ceremony had been beautiful in that expensive, impersonal way. 300 guests, most of whom I didn't know. Dad had gotten married before, to my mother 29 years ago in a small church ceremony with 30 people. This was different. This was a statement. Carol was his trophy. Proof that Michael Vasquez, restaurant mogul, still had it. I'd watched from the 5th row as they exchanged vows. Dad hadn't made eye contact with me once. The country club's terrace overlooked the bay. Servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. I'd found a corner spot by the railing and was checking my phone when Dad's business partner, Richard Morrison, approached. Not my Richard. Dad's Richard. Elena, right? Your father's daughter. That's me. He's mentioned you. You're the one who, what was it? Dropped out of law school? Left law school, I corrected. To start my company. Right. The online thing. How's that going? There was that tone. Polite interest masking complete dismissal. It's going well. Good. Must be nice working from home. Flexible schedule and all that. Very flexible. He'd nodded and drifted away, already scanning the crowd for more important people to talk to. I'd smiled into my champagne glass. Richard Morrison had no idea that his company's new point-of-sale system, the one they'd just spent $200,000 integrating across all 15 Morrison and Associates locations, was powered by software my company had developed. We'd sold it to them through a third-party vendor. They'd never known the source. I hadn't told Dad either. I'd been seated at table 12. Not the family table. Not even close to the family table. Table 12 was filled with Carol's distant cousins and Dad's accountant's wife. Nice people. Strangers. From where I sat, I had a perfect view of the head table. Dad and Carol laughing and radiant. Carol's parents beaming. Dad's business partners and their wives. No seat for me there. Dinner was served. Speeches began. Carol's father talked about what a wonderful man Michael was. Dad's best man, his attorney, naturally, made jokes about prenups and alimony. Everyone laughed. Then Dad stood up. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, he began. Especially my beautiful bride Carol, who's made me happier than I've been in years. Applause. You know, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but Carol's proved that wrong. She's taught me that it's never too late for a fresh start. A new beginning. A chance to build something better. He looked at Carol with such genuine affection that I felt something twist in my chest. He'd never looked at me like that. Carol and I are building something together, he continued. We're expanding Riverside Restaurant Group to the East Coast. 5 new locations over the next 2 years. It's ambitious, but with Carol's business acumen and our incredible team of investors, I know we'll succeed. More applause. I took a long drink of wine. Of course, not everyone understands the restaurant business, Dad said, transitioning into what I recognized as one of his favorite speech modes. Self-deprecating humor with an edge. My daughter Elena, for instance. She's here tonight. Wave Elena. 300 people turned to look at me. I raised my hand slightly. Smiled. Elena dropped out of Stanford Law to start an online store. Sells jewelry or candles or... Honestly, I'm not entirely sure what she sells. Laughter. Sympathetic, knowing laughter. She's very passionate about it, though. Keeps telling me it's the future of retail. I keep telling her that people will always want real experiences. Real food. Real restaurants. But you know kids these days. Everything's online. More laughter. Anyway, Elena, sweetheart, I hope your little shop is doing well. Even if we don't always understand each other's businesses, I'm proud that you're pursuing your passions. He raised his glass. To pursuing passions. To pursuing passions, the crowd echoed. I smiled. Nodded. Raised my glass. And excused myself to the coat room. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through my contacts. Richard Bradford. My Richard. Not Dad's. He answered on the second ring. Elena, how's the wedding? Lovely. Listen, I need you to do something for me. Of course. What do you need? Pull all capital from Riverside Restaurant Group. Every dollar. Effective immediately. Silence. Richard. That's $2.7 million in operating capital, Elena. Are you certain? Completely certain. Execute the withdrawal immediately. I want notification sent to Riverside Restaurant Group within the hour. May I ask what prompted this? Personal reasons. All right. I'll draft the withdrawal notice now. They'll receive it before the night is over. Thank you. I ended the call and stared at myself in the mirror. 6 years ago, Dad had told me not to come crying to him when my little shop failed. He'd never asked if it had failed. He'd never asked how it was doing. He'd simply assumed. What he didn't know, that little shop had evolved into Artisan Connect, an e-commerce platform hosting 12,000 independent artists and craftspeople. Last year's revenue, $89 million. This year's projection, $107 million. What he also didn't know, 3 years ago when he'd needed capital to expand Riverside Restaurant Group from 7 locations to 15, I'd provided it. Anonymously. Through Richard Bradford at Hartwell Investment Group. $2.7 million in exchange for 15% equity and a seat on the advisory board, which I'd never attended because I was listed as HB Capital, a shell company I'd created specifically for investments I wanted to keep private. Dad had been so proud of securing that funding. He told everyone about his major investor, who believed in the vision. That investor had been his daughter. The daughter currently standing in a coat room, listening to 300 people laugh at her failing online store. I smoothed my dress, touched up my lipstick and walked back to the reception. The band was playing something upbeat. Carol and Dad were on the dance floor, surrounded by guests. Everyone was having a wonderful time. I found my seat at table 12 and smiled at Carol's cousin, who was telling a story about destination weddings. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Withdrawal notice sent. Received and confirmed. Are you all right? I typed back. Perfect. Thank you. Another buzz. This one from my CFO Marcus. Just saw the withdrawal notice copy. Bold move. Want to talk about it? Tomorrow. Enjoy your Saturday. You're at your dad's wedding, aren't you? How did you know? Because only family can make you this ruthless. Call me if you need anything. I smiled at that. Marcus understood. They cut the cake at 9:47 p.m. 5 tiers, white fondant, sugar flowers that probably cost more than my first car. Carol fed Dad a bite. He fed her one back. Everyone applauded. I checked my watch. The withdrawal notice had been sent 43 minutes ago. Riverside's CFO would have seen it by now. Probably called Dad's attorney. Possibly called Dad's business partners. The question was, had anyone told Dad yet? As if on cue, I saw Richard Morrison pull Dad aside near the bar. They spoke quietly, urgently. Dad's face changed, confusion, then alarm, then anger. He pulled out his phone. I watched from across the room as he made a call. His face got redder. He made another call. Carol noticed. He touched his arm, concerned. He waved her off. Richard Morrison looked grim. I took a bite of cake. It was excellent. Worth every penny of its ridiculous cost. Dad found me at 10:15 p.m. I was standing on the terrace looking out at the bay when I heard his voice behind me. What did you do? I turned. He looked furious and confused and slightly drunk. I'm not sure what you mean. Don't play games, Elena. HB Capital just withdrew $2.7 million from Riverside. Every dollar of operating capital we had for the East Coast expansion. The notification came through an hour ago. That's unfortunate timing. Unfortunate timing? It's my wedding night. And some faceless investor just destroyed 3 years of planning. Not faceless, I said quietly. You just never asked who they were. He stared at me. What? HB Capital. Henderson Bradford Capital. A holding company I created 6 years ago when I started Artisan Connect. The color drained from his face. You. Me. You invested $2.7 million in my company? 3 years ago. When you needed capital to expand from 7 locations to 15. How did you have that kind of money? From my failing online store. He flinched. Actually flinched. Elena. You told 300 people tonight that I run a failing online store. That you're not sure what I sell. That you don't understand my business but you're proud I'm pursuing my passions. I was joking. Were you? Because you've been making that same joke for 6 years. Every time someone asks about me. Every time I try to tell you about my company. You dismiss it. You diminish it. You treat it like a hobby I'll grow out of. That's not fair. You never asked, Dad. Not once in 6 years did you ask how Artisan Connect was doing. If we were profitable. If we were growing. You just assumed it was failing because that fit your narrative better. What narrative? That you were right. That I made a mistake leaving law school. That I'd come crawling back to you for help. He opened his mouth. Closed it. I didn't think. No, you didn't. You didn't think your daughter could build something successful. You didn't think an online store could generate $89 million in annual revenue. You didn't think I could have $2.7 million to invest in your restaurant chain. $89 million? Last year. This year we're on track for $107 million. He sank onto the terrace railing. I had no idea. I know. That's the problem. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. Dozens of times. You changed the subject. Or you made a joke. Or you gave me advice about getting a real job, while I was building a company that could buy and sell Riverside twice over. Elena. I invested in Riverside because you're my father. Because despite everything I wanted to help you succeed. I structured it anonymously because I knew you'd reject it if you knew it came from me. From your daughter who runs a failing online store. He looked up at me and I saw something I'd never seen in my father's face before. Genuine remorse. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Are you? Or are you just sorry that you need my money? That's not fair. Isn't it? You didn't apologize when you found out I was successful. You asked how I had that kind of money. Like it was impossible. Like I couldn't have earned it. You're my daughter. I thought I knew you. You don't know me at all, Dad. You know, the version of me you created in your head. The one who failed. The one who made a mistake. The one who wasn't as successful as you. I never wanted you to fail. But you needed me to. Because if I succeeded, if I built something bigger than Riverside, what did that make you? He stood up abruptly. So that's it? You pull your funding as revenge? You destroy my expansion plans because I hurt your feelings. I pulled my funding because I'm done being your safety net while you publicly humiliate me. I didn't humiliate you. You told 300 people I run a failing business. You said you're not sure what I sell. You made me the punchline of your wedding toast. It was a joke. It was cruel. And it was based on complete ignorance of who I am and what I've built. He ran his hand through his hair. What happens now? To Riverside? That's not my problem anymore. Elena, please. 5 new locations. 50 new jobs. Contracts that are already signed. If we don't have that capital, you'll figure it out. You're Michael Vasquez, restaurant mogul. I'm sure you can find new investors. In the middle of a planned expansion? With contracts signed and leases executed? No investor will touch that. The timeline is too tight. Then perhaps you should have thought about that before you dismissed the investor you already had. I didn't know. Exactly. You didn't know. You never know because you never ask. I turned to walk away. Elena, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. What can I do to fix this? You can start by actually learning what your daughter does for a living. Not so you can borrow money from her, but because you're genuinely interested in her life. I am interested. Then prove it. Learn what Artisan Connect is. How it works. What makes it successful. Not because you need something from me but because I'm your daughter and you actually care. And then, will you reinvest? I turned to look at him. Maybe. If I believe you've actually changed. If I believe you see me as something other than your disappointment of a daughter who dropped out of law school. You're not a disappointment. Then stop treating me like one. Dad called me on a Tuesday morning. I read your company's website, he said without preamble. The whole thing. Took me 3 hours. I set down my coffee. And it's remarkable. What you've built. The artist partnerships, the revenue sharing model, the community engagement. It's not just a store. It's an ecosystem. Thank you. I also looked up your revenue numbers. They're public record for businesses your size. Elena, you're bigger than Riverside. Significantly bigger. I know. Why didn't you tell me? I tried to, Dad. Many times. Silence. I was wrong, he said finally. About everything. About law school, about your company, about you. I let my ego get in the way of seeing what was right in front of me. I appreciate you saying that. Carol's been giving me hell about the wedding toast. She said I humiliated you in front of 300 people. Carol's right. I know. I called to apologize. Really apologize. Not because I need your money, though we do desperately, but because you deserved better from me. You've always deserved better. I closed my eyes. Thank you. Could we maybe have lunch? I'd like to hear about Artisan Connect. Actually hear about it. No jokes, no dismissals. Just you telling me about what you've built. I'd like that. Really. Really. But Dad. Yes. If you interrupt me to compare it to the restaurant business or to give me unsolicited advice, I'm leaving. He laughed. A real laugh, not his business laugh. Deal. We met for lunch every Tuesday. At first it was awkward. Decades of dismissiveness don't disappear overnight. But slowly something shifted. Dad asked real questions. How did the artist vetting process work? What was my biggest operational challenge? How did I handle customer service at scale? I answered. And I asked about Riverside, not to be polite but because I was genuinely curious about his vendor relationships, his site selection strategy, his approach to menu development. We were learning to see each other. After our 4th lunch, Dad pulled out a folder. What's this? I asked. A revised business plan for the East Coast expansion. Smaller scope, more sustainable timeline. I wanted your feedback before I presented it to potential investors. I flipped through it. It was thorough, well-researched, realistic. This is good, Dad. You think so? I do. You've accounted for the risks I would have flagged. The timeline is aggressive but achievable. The financial projections are conservative. He nodded. I learned from watching you. From your website, your investor presentations. You build slowly, sustainably. I was trying to grow too fast. Growth is good, but foundation matters more. Exactly. I closed the folder. Send me the full business plan. Let me review it properly. If the numbers work, I might be interested in reinvesting. His face lit up. Really? Maybe. Smaller amount this time. And not anonymous. Not anonymous? No. If I invest, it's as Elena Vasquez, your daughter, who runs a $107 million e-commerce platform and knows a thing or two about building sustainable businesses. He smiled, a genuine proud smile. I'd be honored. I stood in the lobby of Riverside's newest location, not on the East Coast but in downtown San Francisco. A soft opening. Family and friends only. Dad had scaled back his expansion plans. One new location at a time. Sustainable growth. I'd reinvested $1.2 million. Not through HB Capital. Through Artisan Connect Ventures, the investment arm of my company that I'd created specifically for supporting small businesses I believed in. My name was on the investor list. Right at the top. Thank you for coming, Dad said, appearing beside me with Carol. Wouldn't miss it. And thank you for the investment. For believing in Riverside. Again. I believe in what you're building, Dad. When you build it the right way. Carol squeezed my arm. He talks about you constantly now. Shows everyone your Forbes profile. It's actually getting annoying. I laughed. Forbes profile. You didn't see? You made their 30 under 30 list. Tech category. I pulled out my phone. Sure enough, there I was. Entrepreneurs to watch. Elena Vasquez, founder and CEO of Artisan Connect. I have 3 copies of the magazine, Dad said proudly. Framed, one for the house, one for my office, and one for Carol's office. That's excessive. That's pride, he corrected. Real pride. In my daughter who built something extraordinary. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the genuine respect in his eyes. The admiration. Thank you, Dad. For what? For finally seeing me. He pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry it took so long. The downtown San Francisco location was packed. Press, investors, food critics, city officials. Dad stood at the podium preparing to give his opening remarks. Before we begin, he said, I want to acknowledge someone special. My daughter, Elena Vasquez, is here tonight. Many of you know her as the founder and CEO of Artisan Connect, a $118 million e-commerce platform that's revolutionizing how artists connect with consumers. He looked directly at me. What you might not know is that Elena is also an investor in Riverside Restaurant Group. She believed in this business when I was ready to overextend and fail. She taught me that sustainable growth matters more than rapid expansion. That foundation matters more than flash. The room applauded. People turned to look at me. Elena, would you say a few words? I walked to the podium surprised. I'm not much for speeches, I began. But I want to say this. My father and I didn't always see eye to eye. 4 years we operated in completely different worlds. He didn't understand my business. I didn't fully appreciate his. I looked at Dad. But we learned. We listened. We made the effort to see each other as we actually are, not as we assumed we should be. That's the foundation of any successful relationship. And any successful business. Seeing what's really there. Respecting it. Building from truth instead of assumption. So tonight, as we celebrate this beautiful restaurant and the hard work that built it, I'm not just celebrating my father's business success. I'm celebrating the relationship we rebuilt. One honest conversation at a time. The room applauded again. Dad stepped forward and pulled me into another hug. I'm proud of you, Elena, he whispered. So incredibly proud. I'm proud of you too, Dad. And for the first time in 6 years I meant it. The invitation arrived on heavy cardstock. Gold embossing. My name spelled correctly. Ms. Elena Vasquez cordially invited to celebrate the grand opening of Riverside Restaurant Group, Boston location. Below that in smaller text, with special thanks to our founding investor and advisory board member, Elena Vasquez. I smiled and texted Dad, I'll be there. He texted back immediately, bring a guest this time. I want to meet whoever's been making you smile at your phone during our Tuesday lunches. I laughed. Some things had changed. Some things, the important things, had changed completely. And that failing online store? It had just been valued at $340 million. I couldn't wait to tell Dad at lunch.